Tonight we'll be putting sliced bread to shame and reinventing the wheel in a show all about inventions. And joining me at the lab bench, we have a world first, Nina Conti and Gran.
Hello.
The peculiarly innovative Sean Locke. Thank you. The patently absurd Bill Bailey. I'm afraid it's back to the drawing board. Alan Davis. Now, panel, if you have any bright ideas you wish to share, activate the light bulb in front of you. Bill goes. Sean goes. Nina or Gran go.
Me? Hurry!
And Alan goes. So you brought your grandmother with you.
Yes. Hello.
Is she familiar with our rule? We have in this series, we have a don't know rule. We have a nobody knows rule.
All right.
There's a joker which you have there, which is the nobody knows. There.
Nobody knows.
Ah, you see, and there may be a question to which nobody actually knows the answer. There is no right answer. The answer is nobody knows. Can she...
Yes,
grandmother...
there you go,
I can hold it. Look.
Oh,
Oh,
there you
look.
go.
It's
You got it?
Yes.
She's got a little bit of
there.
arthritis in the fingers.
That's mesmerising. Look at that.
Yes, it's...
Do you want me to hold it for you?
No, dear.
Oh, all right.
Smack me on the bottom with it, dear.
Great!
I won't be like that. I'm just excited.
Fair enough. Good. Now, my first question is, why should you be glad that you didn't invent the flying car, the parachute suit, or the Webb rotary press?
Well, I've got a feeling the guy with the parachute suit,
Yeah.
didn't he die?
He did.
And then it does follow that they all died.
They were all killed by their own invention. The inventor of the Webb rotary press, for example, which was a huge advance.
Yes.
And it revolutionised printing. And unfortunately, the inventor fell into the works and got gummed up in them and died.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Very sad business. Very sad business. But it did change printing. He was called William Bullock.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which bit of it did he fall in?
Well, into the sort of gearing. I can't imagine how he would have managed it, really.
There was a bloke the other day went through a machine and his whole body went through a tunnel the size of a CD.
What?
And he survived.
What?
Was it Ronnie Corbett?
No. Yeah, that would explain it. No, his whole head went in, broke every bone in his body.
But he
obviously,
did live.
But he lived
Wow.
to tell the tale.
Unfortunately, though, he is now in a redundant format.
Well, anyway, that was the fate of William Bullock. And when it comes to the parachute suit, it was a man called Franz Reichel, who was an Austrian, who was convinced that he could jump off the Eiffel Tower. This is in 1912, wearing a parachute suit. People warned him that it was not a good idea. He was utterly confident, ripped a page out of a book to test which way the wind was going. His last words were, "À bientôt."
Unfortunately, that was the instruction manual.
He jumped off and hit the ground a little bit too hard and was dead. So that was not a good result.
That's not actually an invention, then, is it?
Well,
That's just a really stupid thing to do.
yes.
Where's the actual sort of grey area where inventions just
Well, it
become
was a parachute.
suicide?
It was a parachute suit that might have worked from higher up.
Right.
I mean, the principle behind it was sound, as we know from parachutes. They do work. But he just, unfortunately...
He invented jumping off things.
He invented jumping off things badly.
Badly.
Yeah. The flying car, you ought to know about. Now, this was a Californian engineer called Henry Smolinski. Look at that.
Oh, it's lovely.
It is lovely.
I can't fly or drive, though, because I can't see, because my eyes are goggles. Yes, it's sad. But I can point where I want to go, look. There. Higher. There's buildings down there. Yeah.
Sit.
Hello.
Hello.
Pull my finger, dear.
OK.
Oh, nothing happened.
Oh. Oh, you've got a very, very warm finger there, Gran.
Oh, no, don't say that, dear. Draw attention to it.
All right.
Where it's skin.
OK.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Gran. Yes. I mean, on the face of it, it's rather a marvellous idea. Smolinski's idea was that you drove to an airport, you collected the wings, you'd fly 500 miles on to the next city, where you'd take the wings off, and then you'd drive off again. And it worked really well. And then in 1973, he was on a flight and one of the struts broke, and he and his co-pilot plunged to their death.
Yes.
And the idea was never thought of again, but I think it should be brought back.
I thought he would have died when he was up in the air and then he got up to go around with the drinks trolley.
I mean, I think it's simple.
It's a very...
It worked with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did they have two sets of controls then?
Well, you've asked an intelligent question.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, I know.
Joysticks and it all turn over like in Thunderbirds or something.
Was there a big switch playing car?
Yes. The car steering was modified to control the ailerons so you could fly from the driver's seat. So it was all pretty much all in one.
So you could actually steer it with the steering wheel?
Basically, yeah. I'd love one of those, wouldn't you?
I'd love one too.
Yeah.
Difficult to park, dear. Yeah, difficult to park.
I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I don't like flying.
Don't you?
No. But I was bought a flying lesson for my 40th birthday. My entire family clubbed together and bought me a flying lesson. Yeah. It was £99.
Your entire family spent £99
on my 40th. So I was,
Wow.
I was in quite a bad mood when I turned up at the aeroplane.
Especially as there's 99 of them.
I just have to stay in the overhead compartment, don't I, dear? Yeah, I put her in the overhead compartment.
Oh, that's a bit mean.
No nuts.
Right. And people have to open the compartment slowly just in case you fall out and
I fall
injure
out
someone.
and hurt someone, yes. It's tragic.
It is tragic,
But I'll
darling.
keep going.
Yes.
Happy days.
Aren't you allowed to use the loo?
No, I don't have any godly functions, dear. I just sit there for comfort, but nothing happens.
Right.
Too much information, Gran.
There are all these other grands in the overhead compartments all crawling about during the flight.
I don't know why you even go on the plane. Why don't you just post yourself?
Too expensive, dear, and heavy. That's not true. I lost her once, actually, on a plane by an airline, you know, which, for legal reasons, I'm not supposed to name. Ryanair.
She's bad.
Did you have to pay an extra seat for her or an extra cabin area or anything?
No, unfortunately, she's a cheapskate. I don't know. That's why I don't know. She's a bit big for hand luggage, so it's a dilemma. Yeah. It's always a risk.
Yeah.
Would you put your granny in the hold, dear?
No, I wouldn't.
No.
I have a friend who has one of those micro pigs, and she puts the pig in hand luggage and in the cabin without telling them.
It's only,
It's
only a pig, isn't it?
It's one of those tiny pigs.
Are they easy to look after? My wife would love one of those.
Well, you can grow them, can't you, in special tubes? And so they're triangular, then they'll fit in a Toblerone box, you know.
Well, some
Toblerone? No.
Some of them will grow and grow and grow, and you find you've basically got a huge
You've
porker.
actually just got an actual pig.
Yes, what you bought was a piglet.
God, imagine being conned by a pig salesman.
It's called buying a pig in a poke.
Yeah.
It actually is a phrase for it. Pig
An actual
salesman
pig.
used to be dishonest.
Can you see that, Nina? What, pig in a poke? Can I see that?
Is that what that means?
Go on, say pig in a poke.
That is a challenge to a ventriloquist. Come on. No, if I say pig in a poke, it's fine.
You say it, Gran.
No. Go on, Gran. Pig in a coke.
Yay! That was impressive. How do they do that?
How do they do that?
How do they do
I didn't know it meant that. Pig
Yes.
in a poke? What's a poke, then?
A poke's like a sack. A pocket is a small
Oh, I
poke.
see. So you haven't seen the pig?
Exactly. That's
So it could be a dog.
Sight unseen, exactly, yeah. So, yes, the point is all those inventions tragically killed their inventors. Which well-known invention is the wickedness which lurks in the belly and deserves to dwell in the cesspool? The wickedness which lurks in the belly... do we know the last
Sunny Delight.
Do we?
Oh, I know.
Yes,
Gran? Gran?
We know, because this is... yes, because I'm a belly speaker.
You are a belly speaker, ventriloquism. That's it, so you're a tummy speaker. And it was considered to be a possession by demons, if someone could have this voice come from their tummy that didn't seem to come out of the mouth, or through their voice, you used to say. And there was a patriarch of Constantinople by the name of Photius, who once excommunicated the Pope. And he was the one... There you are. Have a go. Have a go.
Oh, well, we all got these.
Give it a poke.
Yes. I'm very impressed.
Oh, everyone.
Oh, they've all
The
got
weird
one
thing is
look.
that puppet is a ventriloquist, and its lips didn't move when you said that. Yes. So it is operating you, which is fantastic.
It really is a lot. It really is a lot harder than it looks.
Yes.
Very hard.
You've had a stroke, dear.
Lord.
It's like E.T.
Hey,
Oh, no, don't, Gran. No, let's
I
not
am
kiss.
Bogdan. I like you very much. You are an attractive lady.
You're too small for me, dear.
Oh,
If I sat on you and never see you light of day again.
come with me. I have Oyster card.
Are you moving your lips?
How about
It do look like you're going to stroke you, and it's...
Sean, let's see.
John Watts, look.
Sean, let's see if you can do any better. Are you hoping we're going to...
I'm not moving my lips.
He's whispering.
Oh, sorry.
Are you
It's a
hoping...
left-handed puppet, isn't it? Sorry.
I'll speak.
Is pokies...
That's the only thing I'm tempted to do is...
Pieces of eight. Pieces of eight.
You don't actually have to stretch your mouth.
That's the only one I can do. I can't do it any other way. I can't do it.
Hey!
Oh, no! Oh, I bugged it.
You have.
Shit.
What is it?
Bill Bailey. Dear. What a wretched disappointment to us all you are. I hope
So I can't get the talking to... I can't get the talking to you. Well, you're an idiot. It's very difficult.
You have to look like you're listening when you're talking.
You look at her when she's talking.
Yes, and you have to look like you're listening when you are, in fact, talking. It's quite difficult. You know, the first rule of show business, make everything look easy. Sorry.
Yes, that's true.
This half-wit over here. Milking it for all it's worth here.
I think, is it not... It doesn't matter if your lips move, because surely this gives the game away.
In those circumstances,
Stick
yes.
here suggests that it's not actually a real thing that's chatting. So it doesn't really matter whether my lips move, does it?
I thought this was a highbrow show.
Yes,
you know.
quite. And in order to make it highbrow, I'm sure you can help us a little bit, Nina, on the history of ventriloquism.
Well, I know that it has a very dark history and that ventriloquists used to earn their living as if
I've got it
their
all
words were divine utterances.
Yes, that's the point.
Yes. Not you, dear.
So sorry. So sorry, I was listening, but then my hand came out and it got quite... shocked myself. It happened.
That's really disturbing.
It's quite
That's
disturbing.
really
Really disturbing.
Shoulder one.
That's horrible.
That is a
That's like Alien.
It's like Lady Gaga's sleeves.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. It was regarded as a divine utterance or demonic possession, in fact, wasn't
Yes.
it?
And I know one woman died from her ventriloquism.
Who was that?
But I don't know her name, I bet you do. With her utterances, she was objecting to the marriage of Henry VIII
To Anne Boleyn.
to Anne Boleyn.
Her name was Elizabeth Barton, and she was
Right.
known as the Holy Maid of Kent. And she was a very good ventriloquist, and so these voices would come without her mouth moving, as it were, from her stomach.
Nice
in
tricks,
which
too.
she would, in which she would say things, and she became very, very popular until she started to say,
The bloke looking at her tits.
"Yeah, well, he would do that."
You've got yours out as well tonight, dear. The Was that to distract from the lip movement?
And she did very well. She was very popular until she said that if Henry VIII married Anne Boleyn, he would be deposed, and Henry VIII didn't like that at all, so had her head chopped off. And ironically, her head was put on top of a pole outside.
And
Tracy's
carried on
gate.
talking.
Well, you wonder about it. It is quite a strange fate for a ventriloquist to have their head stuck on a pole. But she was indeed, she suffered for her art. But in the 19th century, it became known to be a piece of entertainment rather than demonic spirits. But the first ventriloquists on stage didn't have dummies. Did you know that?
What did they have?
Well, they used to do things like voices inside
just throw in your
suitcases.
voice.
And there would be ones who would do chimney sweeps, where there'd be a chimney and they would do the sound of the chimney sweep boy going up the chimney and getting more and more smothered and quieter and more distant as he went. And they get huge rounds of applause. But it was a man called Fred Russell who came up with it. His character, Coster Joe, was one of the first
Was
dummies.
he blind? He made that one afternoon.
It's not the most beautiful object you've ever seen, is it? But that's when the dummies became popular. And there were many, many famous acts, and some of them rather bizarrely, on radio. Educating Archie. Educating Archie was one of the most successful radio comedy shows in BBC radio history. And Peter Brough, there's Peter Brough. There's Archie, where it was a radio show.
And he had the puppet the whole time? He
yeah,
never even
well,
bothered... Oh, what's the point for the
it's
puppet?
It's the show that Tony Hancock first appeared on, in fact. He made the terrible mistake, Peter Brough, when television arrived, of appearing on television. And he just spoke like this while his puppet was talking. I mean, he didn't even begin to venture towards ventriloquism.
Nina is a ventriloquist, apparently.
Nina is, are you?
And yet to see evidence of that. But my mentor, Ken Campbell, who taught me ventriloquism,
Yes.
he excited me by saying that people don't say the first thing that comes into their head, they say the second thing.
Right.
And we're all balmier than we let it be known.
Yes.
Once your insanity starts to leak, that's when they put you away. But the ventriloquated doll can allow us access to the madness
It's a
of the
kind of
ventriloquator.
sort of Tourette's, as
It's
it were,
Tourette's.
almost.
Licensed Tourette's, dear. Yeah.
Licensed Tourette's. That's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Ken Campbell was one of the true great men of the 20th century as an entertainer, a director, a showmaker, actor, comic, and ventriloquist. And he was... what happened to his dolls?
Oh, he bequeathed them to me
He
in his
did,
will.
didn't he?
And I'm one of them, you see.
Are you really?
Yes.
Were you one of Ken Campbell's?
I was one of his, yes. So it's been recycled. And
But there is a doll heaven, isn't there?
there is a doll heaven. We've just made a film about this.
Oh, have you?
Yes, because when Ken left me his puppets in his will, I found about this place called Vent Haven in Kentucky, where dongies go to rest. There it is,
You'd never stop screaming, would you?
If you're a calirophobe, you would be... but that's right. So over 700 ventriloquists who've died have bequeathed their puppets to Vent Haven, Kentucky. And apart from Gran, that's where...
Who do
No,
you
I'm
reckon?
there, actually. I'm there.
Who do you
now.
reckon's murdered the most?
You think you're Chucky in Child's Play, aren't you? I mean, your classic puppet was, of course, a really big, round, blue-eyed sort of thing with dark eyebrows and a very, very particular sort of look, wasn't it? Do you recognise what that still is from?
Magic.
Magic, the film Magic. And this story is the classic of the ventriloquist who gets taken over, gets possessed. Do you think there's any truth in that? I mean, do ventriloquists get a bit slightly too close? Does Keith Harris get a bit too close?
I can't speak for him.
No.
Because you're not that good a ventriloquist. I know that I have fallen for my puppets. What do you mean, dear? Well, I have on stage sometimes looked at Granny and thought, why aren't you saying anything? This is your line.
Oh, really? That's hilarious.
Yeah. So the madness is starting to kick in.
Yeah, it must be a wildly schizophrenic profession. Though on what dark night of the soul Keith Harris invented a duck like that?
Or a haircut like
Never
that.
mind, yes, going to say that. That's for the shirt, holy smoke.
Well, still...
I love the fact that Orville's in a nappy, that's my favourite.
That was the odd... It was odd, wasn't it? A duck in a nappy.
Which was the opposite of Donald Duck.
The opposite of-
Because he always had his privates out, didn't he?
Yes. Good point. Yeah, there you go.
Well, very good point. Very good point.
Thank you.
I think I've made that point excellently.
Yeah.
I'm delighted with that point.
Good.
I've made.
I'll give you a point for that point.
I get a point for
Yeah,
that.
you get a
Thank
point
you.
for that point. The art of ventriloquism has come on in leeks and gowns since back in the good old days.
now. You're doing
Yeah, I'm
funny
doing it
now.
now. Speaking of which of you here has or has ever had or used to have an imaginary friend? Did you ever, Gran? Did you have an imaginary friend?
I think... you can't say his name. I think Bill Daly, that's a hard one. I think you're my imaginary friend. You're slightly out of focus.
Really?
A fuzzy kind of...
Wait, so
and you, Sean,
that's
you're a
very
bit
strange.
What?
I mean, my reality is being called into question by... This is one of the odder conversations I've had, but...
If your imaginary friend falls over in the forest and there's no one to hear, does that... I can't
That's a
finish
very
this
good
sentence.
philosophical point. We're getting Bishop Berkeley from Gran. I'm very impressed. Did you have one? I mean, a lot of children do. Did you have an imaginary friend when you were young?
I'm not aware of it.
No, your mother would
They
have
didn't
told
used
you.
to come around much.
Right.
Imaginary friend who doesn't play with
An
you.
imaginary friend who cuts you dead.
Yeah, I wanted to be his friend.
Oh, that's so sad.
He just wasn't interested.
But we're all familiar with, obviously, the concept of it and the fact that a lot of children do seem to have imaginary friends, which can worry their parents.
It's really peculiar.
It is peculiar. That you have to lay places at table for them. They have to be given, seats on sofas to watch television and so on, and they have tea parties for them. But it seems, according to psychiatrists, that having an imaginary friend is a very good thing for a child, and that the children who have had them tend to have more social and verbal skills than those who don't. Although, it must be said, a certain proportion of them are malevolent. Some people have imaginary friends who scare their children, which is a very worrying thought. A nasty imaginary friend.
I hear voices.
What's that, though?
Do you?
But I ignore them and I just carry on killing.
The voices that said, stop killing people,
Sean, you know this
Stop
is
it.
wrong. You know this is wrong, Sean. This isn't fair. They don't deserve it. I ignore them.
Yeah.
It is, yes, it's quite a phenomenon. It was actually Yasser Arafat, of all people, who said the history of religious wars is the history of people fighting over their imaginary friends. It's weird, the leader of the PLO, the man who founded the Palestinian movement, which is now, of course, so bound up with religious extremism, was himself rather sceptical about it all. The world has hardly come on, has it? Let's be honest.
Interesting thing I know about him,
Yeah.
he married a French woman. You wouldn't think that, would you?
It's not beyond the bounds of reason.
Well, you think he's very interested in helping his local area.
Yes.
Yeah.
He'd choose one of his local women.
Yes, but the very nature of being a Palestinian meant he had no homeland in which to live, so it's quite likely he would choose someone from a homeland where he had to reside in exile. And many did in France, in fact.
Or maybe she was just an imaginary wife.
Maybe she was an imaginary Frenchman, or maybe she was just damn hot.
She's foxy.
Yeah. Foxy, exactly. Renard.
Was he a...
I imagine one of the
Was he
attractions
a
is...
pussy hound? I don't know.
I-
I said that. Something's gone wrong.
I'm intrigued to know that... I'm intrigued to think that you thought that was what I was about to say. You looked into my eyes and thought, he's going to say pussy hound. I'll beat him to it. I'll beat him to the punch.
Now,
Is a pussy hound like a liger? It's a kind of a cat and a dog together.
It was like a dog that we used to actually... that gentlemen would send out to fan ladies.
It's
like
a
one man and his
combination.
dog.
So it's kind of both independent yet loyal.
yes.
Yeah.
I like the idea of that. Very good.
Interesting.
Now,
Yeah.
Candice Bergen, actress.
Oh, yes.
Fond of her?
she was
Superb
that.
actress.
She's very,
and still
very
is.
beautiful.
Very, very beautiful. Didn't have so much an imaginary friend as an imaginary brother. Can you imagine why that might be?
It was Charlie McCarthy, wasn't
Charlie, exactly,
It was
because
the-
the most famous American ventriloquist was
it? Edgar Bergen.
Edgar Bergen. He was
His
a huge
lips
star.
moved too.
Huge star. And his puppet was called Charlie McCarthy. And in the house, he had his own bedroom, his own wardrobe, monogrammed clothes. And Edgar Bergen's real daughter, Candice, was brought up basically as Charlie McCarthy's brother in a rather freakish and extraordinary
You
way.
mean
It's
sister?
amazing she's turned out as sane as she is. Now, you all have an invention under your benches, and we'd like to know what they are. What are we looking at?
Well, it's some kind of measuring device.
We've given it to you for a reason.
Is
all I
really?
can say. Yeah, you, a particular quality you have, you might be more likely to guess it than others.
Oh, I see. Is it a beard measuring device?
No, well, I wouldn't call your beard a quality. I mean, it's a lovely beard, but it's not a quality.
Whoa,
it's a feature.
Hey, you crossed the line, Fry.
It's a feature.
Don't
it's a
diss the
lovely,
beard.
charming facial feature.
Right.
It has a musical connection.
It has a musical connection. Oh,
If you are a certain kind of instrumentalist, you might be born, as it were, with limitations that annoy you.
wait a minute. Is this something which stretches the reach of a pianist
Yes.
so he can reach
exactly
up?
what
Wow.
it is. Yeah, well done. Well done. You put it down, that's right, and each time you stretch it, because most people might be able to manage an octave, you know,
Right.
one C to C kind of thing, and some, as you know, can do go to C to E.
I can do C to E.
Can you? That's
Yes.
a wide reach.
It is a wide reach. I see. So that's it. So the hand would go in there,
Yeah.
and then you just undo this thing here,
And that's right, and stretch, and
and
stretch,
then
until
this would
eventually...
then stretch and
Yeah.
stretch and stretch like that.
Yeah. Supposedly it would give you... Ow, exactly. So, what have you got there, Sean?
It's a bottle, Stephen,
And what do you think it was for?
for putting stuff in.
OK, so, Mex, moving on to you. What have you got there?
Is this one mine? It's a suppository for Charlie McCarthy.
Well, do you know the bizarre thing is you're not far off?
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes,
no.
if you can
It's
unscrew the
taper
bottom.
tip.
If you unscrew the
You
bottom
have to
part...
help me, Gran.
yes.
With my
You-
teeth, yeah. Gran, help me. I can't get a grip.
Maybe Bill will help.
You get one of those with a
I can't do it, dear.
Yes?
preparation H.
You get one of the...
Wait a
Alan's
minute.
on
Has
it.
this been up someone's ass?
Yes.
Yeah.
Alan has exactly got it.
You screw, when you get preparation H,
Yeah.
you screw a plastic one of those on
Yeah.
the top, you insert it in your rectum,
Yeah.
and the
Out of the holes
shark oil comes out the holes.
comes the hemorrhoid treatment. Exactly right. For the treatment of hemorrhoids.
Right. So what happens? This unscrews.
Yeah. And you pop in the ointment.
You put the ointment goes in there.
Yeah, then you screw it up.
Then-
Then,
right.
then you put the thing up your body.
Up the
and then
old,
You, then you screw that, and as you
Jaxie.
screw it up, the ointment
Squirts
squirts up, reaching all the
out.
places it needs to reach.
Squirts
wow.
out happy
That's
days,
quite clever.
dear. Happy
Because at least half the people on the planet will be afflicted with hemorrhoids at some point in their lives. So it is-
So is this something you could self-medicate, or...
yes, you could do it. You don't need to.
Oh,
you can
yeah.
ask
I'll
a friend
do
to
it
do it if you
for
want
you.
to.
Imagine my
Imagine your friend, I think it would be best, to be perfectly honest. What are yours, Alan? What have you got?
I've got on a pair of glasses that enable me to see into my lap. Now, I wonder
Yeah,
if they're... Because I can read this book,
yeah.
right, but I'm looking up at you.
Yeah.
So whilst I'm looking down, I can read and write, but see straight ahead. So are they for an artist or a painter?
No, actually, they're more sort of lazy than that. They're called lying down spectacles. You'd lie in bed and you'd put the book on your chest and you'd be able to read like that, lying down. It's rather elegant and pleasing,
Actually,
isn't
no,
it?
that's exactly what you need when you're sunbathing, and you always have to hold
Yes,
the book like
wouldn't that be ideal?
that. And actually, yeah, you can do it.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't look weird at all. It's great.
If you caught the sun on the mirror, you'd be instantly blinded.
Blinded.
That would be the problem. But it's a surprisingly clear image, isn't it? And here I have this little device with a cork on the end, and this. It's in the shape almost of a policeman's whistle, which is a hint, because policemen would carry these around with them.
That's for blowing bubbles.
It does look like it, doesn't it? There'll be a liquid in there, you're absolutely right.
Oh, right. With,
Liquid be a sort of salts of ammonia, sal volatile. Do you know?
Oh, smelling salts.
Smelling salts, exactly.
ringing
And
round.
this was called a policeman's lady reviver. So
I need that, dear. Can I
you
have a
need a
sniff?
lady reviver. So when a lady fainted in the street, the policeman would whip it out there and just... Please. Oh. And he'd whip it out and wave it under the... He'd whip it out and wave it under the lady's nose. That would wake her up. Yes, the sharp smell of ammonia, which was what is in the smelling salts.
I see.
And have you come to a more sensible decision as to about what your flask is for? It's got it written on it, if you took the trouble to bloody read it.
Hardened Star hand grenade.
Yeah.
It's a hand grenade, Stephen.
It's a kind of hand grenade, yes. It's actually a fire extinguisher hand grenade.
It's a water grenade.
You'd fill it with aqueous solution and you would throw it at a fire. And that was the idea. You'd throw it.
Yeah.
Well, there you are. Those were our inventions. Lots of very imaginative ones there, and they're kindly lent to us by the Morris Collins collection, and all in beautiful condition. Thank you for that, and thank you for not breaking them. How did Edwin Beard Budding's invention affect an army of men with wooden blocks strapped to their feet?
Did he invent duckboards?
No, but at least you're thinking.
Because
No, I mean that in a non-patronising way.
Nobody knows.
He's put up the card backwards.
Cheapskates. You just put it on one side. You cheap bastard.
yeah, that's right. It's their fault. You held it up the wrong way.
That doesn't count. I put it out the wrong way.
We do exactly know why.
You do know, all right.
There was a profession which employed many people, and in order to fulfil their profession, to practice it, they wore blocks on their feet. But Edward's invention got rid of the need for these
periscope.
people all the time. No, it's rather weirder than that. There's a hint for you, darlings.
Oh, great.
Grass.
Grass. Yes. Grasses.
How, if you wanted a lawn in olden days, how would you...
Mow the roller.
You'd mow it with a roller?
No, the roller.
The roller flattens
Scythe
it. It
it.
doesn't cut the
Scythe it.
grass. though.
Scything.
You'd scythe it. You'd have armies in grand country houses. You'd have scythemen. And they had, like a golf swing, a very precise action. And so the grass was according to how high they were. So they'd wear blocks for the higher grass and the shorter blocks for the lower grass. And that's how they would scythe away. And this man, Edwin, he invented a little machine for sort of cutting the nap of cloth on soldiers' uniforms. And he thought, I wonder if that would work on grass. And he eventually came up with the lawnmower. And you may say, well, it's a pretty good invention, but actually it altered the world in the most amazing way. It allowed football, cricket, all kinds of games to be played, public parks. Everybody could suddenly have a lawn.
So, yes.
So he was rather a human benefactor in
Yes,
a way.
he was. And where did he do this?
In Stroud.
In Stroud.
Stroud in Gloucestershire.
Is he celebrated there?
Edwin Budding, I'm sure he is in Stroud. Edward Budding, I hope anyone in Stroudians watching.
There's a
Probably
big
up there with
statue of him.
Laurie Lee as one of the great Strouders.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
a shame for the men. It's my idea of heaven, a lot of men that can't run away from you very quickly. with their blocks on.
It was a shame for the scythemen, I suppose. But, yeah, a happy story. I don't see a downside to that story, apart from the fact that there is a British Lawnmowers Museum, which is a bit depressing.
But,
The Southport British Lawnmower Museum, if you happen to be in Southport,
Yeah.
in Merseyside, has over 300 exhibits, especially for its lawnmowers of the rich and famous, where you were able to look and possibly even touch Vanessa Feltz's lawnmower. Not just Vanessa Feltz, Alan Titchmarsh.
oh, he'd probably have a really nice one.
Yes, I bet he did. Nicholas Parsons. What sort of lawnmower would Nicholas Parsons have, do you
Old.
imagine?
Heavily made up.
Heavily made up.
A big
big
glass one.
Brian May.
Brian May.
Roger McGuff, Albert Pierpoint, public home, and Prince Charles and Princess Diana. I can't believe they had personal lawnmowers.
I don't mow my grass.
Don't you? What do you do with it?
I threaten it.
Does it work? Yeah.
Going very well.
Shrinks
Cowed
back
it into submission.
Cow it into submission.
Don't you grow?
Anyway, the invention of the lawnmower put large numbers of scythemen out to grass, as you might say. The inventor of bacon and eggs also coined the phrase torches of freedom. Who was he? What were they?
Sorry, the inventor of
I know.
bacon and eggs?
It sounds a bit mad, but bacon and eggs as a dish that is a sort of breakfast staple was invented, as it were, by one man. He made it popular. Torches of freedom is a phrase that he came up with, the same man. His name was Edward Bernays. He happened to be a nephew of Sigmund Freud.
Oh, well.
So it is He was employed by a food company, and American breakfasts in his day were very light. A roll, orange juice, cup of coffee, that was it. He collected 5,000 doctors who basically made testament to the fact that a heavy breakfast was better for you than a light breakfast. And he basically persuaded America that they should eat heartily for breakfast, and bacon and eggs became the staple. And this man is really responsible for what we call public relations.
2 million deaths by heart disease later.
As well, not only that, but he also got women to smoke. There was a real problem. there was a real problem.
Did he encourage that man to jump off the Eiffel Tower?
There was a real problem in the early part of the 20th century as far as the tobacco companies were concerned. It was that women just didn't smoke. In fact, in New York City in the 20s, a woman was arrested for smoking outside. It was considered totally unfeminine.
Photos from the olden days when they've clearly said, now, come on, girls.
Well, that's the point. This was
Everyone's having a drag at exactly the same
No,
moment.
this is the point, Alan. This is a photo opportunity. He invented it. This is his PR moment. His job was to sell cigarettes to women and to sell them to America, the idea that women should smoke. So during an Easter parade, he got these women and photographed them all smoking. And it was a scandal. It was on the front page everywhere. But what he said was, this is feminism. This was during the suffrage movement in America, trying to get women to vote. And he said, this is an act of independence. These cigarettes are not cigarettes. They are torches of freedom.
Torches of freedom.
That's right.
Oh.
And so the idea that women smoking became a proof of their independence and a proof, as it were, of their feminism.
She's set fire to her face, the one.
She
on
has,
there.
she has
So they've got the hang of it.
not very used to the smoking, as they say, wasn't. So he was a pretty cunning devil, this Edward Bernays. Right, well, that's enough imaginative invention. Let's now turn our attention to the very real but entirely impractical business of general ignorance. So fingers on buzzers, those that are still working. Who invented the internet?
Now.
Now. Yes.
Tim Berners...
Yes.
Unfortunately, I couldn't remember the name.
Oh, that's lucky you couldn't remember his name.
Oh,
No,
not Tim Berners-Lee.
I think I'm
certainly
safe
not.
for this answer.
Yeah.
Parsley the lion. They won't have that up there, will it?
It's wrong, but there's no forfeit.
But on this very programme, you were telling the story of how Tim Berners-Lee invented the internet.
Of how he invented the World Wide Web, which is much later than the internet.
That's
the
not
internet
the
has already
internet.
been around for 20 years before that. It's just like one of the things that you can use on the internet. Yes, it was actually the 1960s.
Oh, 1960s?
Early
Famous, one of the Beatles.
No, that's not quite how things worked. ARPANET was the original internet. It was an offshoot of the American Defense Program, and the first communication took place in California. And when was that? In 1969. 2 computers. And they were 400 miles apart, one in LA and one at the Stanford Research Institute. And the first message was LO. And it wasn't going to say LOL.
I was going to say no.
It did get cut off, though. It was going to say login, but it crashed after the L and the O. But it was the first worthy attempt. Do you use the computer, Gran?
Yes, I use it for dating. Oh, yes, I do, yes. I've met a racing driver, and he thinks I'm a 20-year-old lap dancer. Happy days. I didn't know that. He's in for a shock.
According to Berners-Lee, who did invent the World Wide Web, the true fathers of the internet, he says, are Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn, who invented the internet protocol. So there you are. Now, how did dinosaurs have sex? You're right! We're right, Alan. We just don't know. You're good at that.
There are no extant genitals.
No, there are soft tissue, or well, they wouldn't necessarily be soft, but the soft tissues are the bits that don't survive in fossils, of course. It's only in the last 15 years they've been able to sex a dinosaur fossil. The female dinosaurs have a special sort of cavity for making extra calcium for eggs, and that's how you can tell from a fossil whether it's a female or a male one. But obviously that would be wrong, because that would be interspecies dinosaur sex of the weirdest kind, and would be... No, that wouldn't be
I
right.
think he's just looking for a cheap thrill.
I think
I don't mean that's about procreation at all, that meeting.
No, that one
That's
isn't.
like a dinosaur S&M dungeon, that, isn't it?
Yes. The best guess is that, like most birds and reptiles, dinosaurs had a cloacal sac. A sort of single opening for both waste and reproduction. It's not
Like
a sac so much
sharks.
as an opening. Like sharks, exactly. And they mated by a cloacal kiss. And there we are. What are the right conditions for dry rot?
Well, it's damp.
It's
Yes,
damp.
that's the point.
It's a
got to be
trick
damp.
question, dear.
It's, yes.
It's a trick question,
It was
yes.
a trick question. Have you ever had dry rot?
Only on my face.
Oh, right, lovely.
The latex.
That's lovely news. Dry rotting needs to be damp.
Yep.
What about rising damp? The weird thing about rising damp, the really surprising thing about rising damp, can you tell me what that is?
It's not damp.
It goes down.
Even more extraordinary than that. According to many, many
Insane.
people in the architectural, surveying and building world, it doesn't exist. It's made-uppy.
It's mould. It's just mould.
Well, yeah, it's basically normal damp, which has come from a source like a leak or something. And this idea that there's rising damp, you need to put it in a damp course, because there are many people who genuinely say it honestly doesn't exist, and yet it's in the building regulations. The former chairman of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors said it was a myth, rising damp. A building expert written a book on the rising damp myth, says that rising damp is only possible in swamps. There's a diagnosis, it only became common in the 60s.
Although I tell you, when you do see it, I've seen girls in London wearing flared jeans going over their shoes.
Yes.
And on a rainy day, they get
That's true.
down almost up to their knees.
It's not to say that capillary action doesn't exist. It does.
Rising damp only exists in ladies' jeans.
Yes, that may be the only place. But it's a heck of a controversial thought, but a myth. Name a disease spread by feral pigeons.
Crumb hair.
There aren't any.
Exactly.
Viles
There's
disease.
nothing wrong with them.
There's nothing wrong with them. Again, is the answer. You're doing awfully well.
I'm doing very well.
Fire. You are on fire tonight. Yeah, basically this idea that they are disease-infested and disease-spreading vermin is nonsense, according to all experts on pigeons. But this whole thing of them as being rats with wings is considered very unfair by those in the know, that they don't really spread that much disease. Though they do obviously leave a fair amount of poo, but then so do humans, don't we? Yeah. We've just got a better way of dealing with it, perhaps.
I tend not to leave it on people's shoulders.
That's the difference.
I mean, I wasn't so as well brought up. There's a few benchmarks we tried to set early on in my toilet training.
Yeah, that was one of them.
That was one of them. They said,
Never on the shoulder.
That had a big no through it, like a big red line. It was in my bedroom on the door. And there's a picture of a
poo
man
when you're flying.
with a turd over his shoulder. And he said, "No, Sean."
You've learned your lesson. We're all very tidy pooers, I'm sure,
Yes.
here in this room, including Granny. Are you very tidy pooer?
Not at all. Don't even do them, dear.
You
don't
don't?
eat, don't excrete.
Perfect. That's the secret of a long and happy life. And that's your lot. Time to invent the scores. Oh, my goodness me. Very exciting indeed. I'm afraid, despite some remarkable performances in last place with -3, it's Bill Bailey. And in a very creditable 4th place with 1 point, Alan Davis. In the plus. 3rd place with 3, Sean Locke. In 2nd place with 4 is Gran. Brilliant. Which means that our winner with +5 is Nina Conti. Thanks to Bill, Nina, Gran, Sean and Alan, and I leave you with this from Sid Caesar. The guy who invented the first wheel was an idiot. The guy who invented the other 3, he was a genius. Good night.